So a few days ago, I completed my new hardest demon, Ethereal Artifice, which was an amazing accomplishment. And with that, I consider myself a very good player. But how exactly did I improve in such a way that went from my hardest being only windy landscape a year ago, all the way to now where I've completed 28 extreme demons, with Bloodbath out of my top 10? Well, in this video, I'll be telling you everything I've done to improve at Geometry Dash. We need to start with a very important topic to improve at this game. Geometry Dash is a very simple game. There's only one input in the game, which is used to jump as a cube, fly as a ship, etc. But there is way more than just making inputs, as there is another aspect that is essential for success. This is of course your mindset. Your mindset in Geometry Dash is one of the most essential parts of improving in Geometry Dash. Without a good mindset, you won't enjoy levels, you won't be consistent, you'll be stressed as hell, and it just won't be a good time. So how do we actually obtain a good mindset? Well, it's easier said than done, as I struggle with it a ton. When you start a new level, you don't want to expect a certain experience. Sometimes you can get lucky and fluke the level, but on the other hand, you could get extremely unlucky, dying to the last part of a level 50 times. Ahem. Rash! But that's actually a good example. And speaking from experience, I expected to not die to the end a lot, but die to it way too often. And as a result, my mindset was wrecked. So when going into a certain level, just know that you will eventually beat it. When you put your mind to it, anyone in the world could beat any level if they are willing to put in the time. Before we talk about levels to beat and how you should progress, I need to talk about practicing. Although not as necessary in easier levels, practicing is a major component to beating levels in Geometry Dash. I would 100% recommend practicing every level that's challenging for you. That means if you're just now starting out, use practice mode on every level you play. But once you get a grasp of the game, you are able to sight read levels like these. But once you get into demons, especially the higher end demons, practice mode is a must. So how exactly do we go about practicing? Well, I would start out with a few practice runs of the level you're going for. And once you have a basic understanding of the level, learn the level backwards. That means doing the last part, then once you have that down, do the part before it along with the part after it. Continue this process until you feel as if you have a basic understanding of the end of the level. However, doing runs before 30% is not that necessary, unless you're playing something extremely first half heavy, like Silent Club Step or Firework. So I'd recommend doing something like 50 to 100 or 30 to 100 before going from 0, as you know you can do the second half of the level. Going from 0 will be intimidating, but it will eventually get consistent. Just make sure you're patient, as progress will be very slow. Once you have the level in 2 runs, it's just about piecing everything together. And another tip, if you're going for your new hardest or something in the area, I'd recommend warming up by practicing the later parts in the level. Not only will this make you ready to play, but it will also be extremely helpful in making you more consistent. Now I want to help those of you who have just now gotten into this game. So if you have been playing for quite a while, skip to the next chapter unless you're watching this for entertainment. But to those of you who have actually just now started, you'll almost certainly need to beat all the main levels to understand the game. This is of course where I started. I beat every single level here before I moved on to the online levels. Going through each level introduces you to new mechanics. Ceremanish just showcases the basics of the game, then each level adds a new mechanic. Back and Track introduces the jump pad, Poltergeist introduces the jump orb, and Dry Out with the upside down portal. Then the next few levels are just to challenge what you've learned. Just letting you know, Can't Let Go is a huge hurdle for improving. This took me 9 days to complete, and I raged a ton at it. But after completing it, you are definitely ready for what's next. Jumper will use the upside down portals along with the ship game mode, which will be challenging if you have never experienced it. Now I don't want to bore you with every single level, so I would just go through every level in order. There's a reason why they are in this order, as it increases in relative difficulty and introduces new mechanics. Just let you know that Clarifunk, Clubstep, Electrodynamics, Toe 2, and Deadlocked will all be very challenging for beginners. But you could move on to the online levels if you want after being just a few levels, as you now understand the game pretty well. If you want to go into more detail, I'd recommend EVW's video from 5 years ago, as it still has some useful information to this day. Once you have gotten a grasp of the game, you are definitely ready to start beating demons. Of course, this will be a challenge for beginner players, but hey, if you beat all the main levels, you're ahead of the game. But if you have not, I would recommend doing either Clubstep or Toe 2 as your first demon, as they aren't so easy like the Nightmare, but aren't too difficult. For me, I beat Clubstep as my first demon, and it took me 9 days and 3,500 attempts, so be patient with it. But after beating these levels, you're ready for the community-made levels. If you have no idea what levels to choose to improve as a beginner, the Geometry Dash Demon Progression, or GDDP for short, by Trusta is an excellent choice. Here, it lists demons precisely chosen to improve your skill into different tiers of difficulty. From easy demons at beginner, all the way to levels that have not been beaten yet in Obsidian. But right now we're looking at the beginning. I would recommend completing the required amounts of demons to complete a tier before moving on to the next tier, as that is the approach I've taken. For example, since you get the beginner tier for beating 10 beginner demons, beat 10 easy demons. Of course, you aren't forced to beat the levels on the GDP, as you can choose your own levels around the same difficulty, but it's just a good way to show some levels that could improve you. Before we move on to the next section, we should also mention skill sets. Skill sets are really important in this game, as it influences the levels you beat. Skill sets are basically how good you are at a certain game mode or aspect to the game. Skill sets include ship, wave, and timings. But the best thing to do is balance out your skill set. That means playing all types of levels: shift focus, wave focus, timing focus, etc. The reason why it's so important to balance out your skill set is so that every level is accessible to you in some way. For example, if you're a wave player, you would breeze through all the wave levels but struggle a lot with everything else. Like being able to beat mainless wave levels, but struggle with easy extremes that don't utilize wave. It's also extremely important to improve your nerve control, otherwise you'll die to stupid spots like this.
No, idiot!
But how exactly do we build up our nerve control? Well, any level can build up nerve control, but longer levels will build it up way more than normal length levels. If you're starting out, I recommend doing stuff like Starpunk, the Hills of Eyes, and or the Crimson Blade for nerve control. But if you really need a nerve control challenge, the Long Walk Home by Ren241 is where it's at. Even I get nervous on these levels despite my hardest being Ethereal Artifice. Now let's speak of the approach I've taken ever since I started Geometry Dash. After I beat the main levels, I played a few more levels to balance out my skill set, like Problematic and Deathmoon. But once you move on from easy demons, the jumps get bigger and bigger from each demon difficulty. So I would suggest to find a few medium demons to beat, each of different skill sets, and you'll see your skill improve quite a bit. And once you're ready, go for a hard demon. But the jump from medium to hard demons will be a tough challenge and intimidating. I went for 9 circles as my first, and it took me about a month to beat. But once you beat your first hard demon, they will be way less challenging. After I beat 9 circles, I beat other hard demons like Jawbreaker and Megalovania with ease. Now I would recommend going for an insane demon after beating about 10 to 15 hard demons, as you would be prepared a lot more than jumping straight to them. But insane demons still will be a tough challenge. A few insane demons I would recommend when you're first going for them are Windy Landscape, Firewall, 8-0, Mastermind, Magma Bound, and Night Terrors. Also, if you're going for Night Terrors, don't do this.
Did I actually just fail at the end?
But once you start beating insane demons, you're getting really good at this game. Not a lot of players can reach this point, so you should feel real proud of yourself. But as we reach extremes, it will be hard to choose them without external tools, as extreme demons range from just only a bit harder than the hardest insane demons, all the way to the top of the list. Of course, we could use a GDP and choose a few levels from the Platinum tier, or use a Geometry Dash Demon Ladder to find levels at tier 21 or 22. So if I would recommend here would be Accu, Cataclysm, and Misty Mountains. But be prepared to challenge yourself more and more. Since extreme demons are so broad in difficulty, I would use a GDP from this point on, as the harder the level is, the more likely it's on the GDP. Once you start getting to the skill level of being insane and extreme demons, your hardware matters a lot more. Let's start with your input. Recently, a lot of players have been switching to playing on keyboard. While I play better on mouse myself, playing on keyboard can be a good option for a lot of people. And I will admit, it does feel more comfortable when I do it, but it's hard to control myself. So try different inputs and see what's best. The next thing is your monitor's refresh rate. There is no doubt that Geometry Dash is easier on higher FPS, that's a fact. If you are able to afford a 144Hz or even a 240Hz monitor, you'll be given a pretty big advantage. But if you can't afford the hardware, I'd recommend Mega Hack by Absolute, as it makes the game much more optimized. You can also change your FPS as well, without having to buy an expensive monitor. But some people do want to challenge themselves to a lower FPS or even mobile completions, which is insane to do. If you want to challenge yourself with lower end devices and lower FPS, go ahead. It's very impressive to see people challenge themselves in this way. It may also be a good idea to record your footage when you die and you don't know how you did. When you look back on that, you'll be able to see what you did wrong and improve on that mistake. And also, recording your footage can bring you into uploading YouTube videos and or streaming, which can be an excellent hobby. Now I want to speak about motivation. Motivation in this game is an important thing to work on to get better at this game. If you know me, I've gotten very demotivated with my past few levels. Like, I felt like I wasn't able to finish them off no matter how hard I tried. But I have finished every level I've started because I never gave up. If you're feeling extremely demotivated, it doesn't hurt to take a break. I have had the feeling that taking a break would destroy my consistency, but it's the exact opposite. For example, with Rash, I took a break for 4 days, and the day I came back, I beat it. Same exact thing with Artificial Ascent. You can also beat levels that are pretty easy for you to build up some motivation just to beat a few more levels. If you're at my skill level, play a few easy demons. But if you're not as skilled, try out star grinding. It's pretty fun to do if you have nothing else to do. And just one more thing with motivation, please do not let a game take over your life, as that can be extremely unhealthy. I was there a few years ago with other games, playing them for unhealthy periods of time. I did also go overboard with Troll Level by beating it in one sitting, which was 9 hours long. And from that decision, I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. Don't set yourself a time restraint, as you can get very demotivated. Now I want to talk about one more thing that a lot of players miss. This is of course keeping healthy habits. When you let a game take over your life, that is the absolute worst thing you could do. So I would recommend getting a good night's sleep every night, keeping a healthy diet, and getting regular exercise. But it will even help improve you at the game. I have been there where I had no life to game before, and let me tell you, that was no good. But nowadays, I have been running every single day of my life, getting the right food, and hopefully enough sleep. Still struggling a bit with that last one. But because of this, no wonder I have been able to improve at a rapid pace. So that's my take on how to improve the Geometry Dash. Geometry Dash is one of the hardest games to get into, but once you get good enough, it can be one of the most enjoyable. I hope the best for all of you on your journey to become a better player. Share your stories with me in the comments on your journey. Anyways, thanks for watching, and have a good day.